You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. Thanks for joining us today, and I'm really excited your story's been told a lot, to hear it again and learn from you. Mary Engelbreit, almost enough said, but I loved what I read, The Vast Empire of Cuteness. Which, yes. Sometimes for women, cuteness can be, is it derogatory? But with what you do and the joy you put out there and just the inspiration, it is love and cute. Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining us today. And once again, being willing to share your wisdom and your story.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And this was one we've been excited about for a while. And again, you've done so much in life and business. So I'm sure so much wisdom to share, not only just from successes, but often our biggest learning opportunities are from the mistakes or the failures in life.
Very true. Very true. I hope I have enough wisdom to get through this podcast.
No doubt, I'm sure you do. And, if you were living under a rock and don't know the Mary Engelbreit brand and everything, I mean, if someone came up to you, if you literally found, and do you find anybody anymore who don't know who you are or don't know the brand?
Yeah.
How would Mary Engelbreit describe herself and the whole brand?
Well, I usually just say, I'm an artist, an illustrator, and do children's books, calendars. And once I say that, it seems like people start to, they're like, oh, yeah, wait a minute. Did you do this or that or the other thing? So, but that's how I think of myself, it's just an illustrator.
So it sounds so simple. Just an illustrator.
It's an illustrator. It's a no-brainer for me because, that's what I love to do. I would do it even if I weren't doing all of this along with it. It's what keeps me going every day is to draw or to make stuff. So, but yeah, the business part of it is certainly a whole different ballgame.
We find with a lot of business owners that there's the love of what they do and what brings them to their business, and then all those other pieces and knowledge, that awareness, et cetera, that they need to either fill in the gap or learn as the business.
Right. The business that I, would like them to do. Leave me alone so I can draw. But you do have to, you get involved. And we've always had, at the beginning, it was my husband and myself and my sister. And that's it. That's all we had. And we just, grew very exponentially. I mean, it just never stopped really growing for a long time. And so we would hire new people, and it's always been very important to me that I like the people that we have around, because it's a very small business, in the greater scope of things. It's a pretty small business, and I want to know and like the people that I work with.
I don't want to jump in, but what comes to mind here is like the mission and the passion and the values and the vision that
right.
You want people who understand it and want to live it with you.
Yeah, I want people who do understand the vision and that it's so important to me, and that I'm, every drawing is important in my book. And I just want to make sure that the people working in the company understand that, and they all do. A lot of times they come to the business because they like, what I do. And so we've always had a good bunch of people.
Yeah, because I think it would be simple to say it's just an illustration. And sometimes you do want to get down to just what is it, plain and simple. Yet it's more than that, right? It's the feeling,
right.
The illustration and the picture and the words and the colors. And it's that feeling and the emotion it percolates up
Yeah,
that people are coming to?
My thought is that, I like to make each drawing, I think about what it would say to somebody, how they would look at it, and I'm usually illustrating things that happen to me and my family or my friends. So just everyday things. And I think that's why people look at the drawings and are able to recognize themselves in the drawings.
I don't want to, it sounds like, and I want you to be able to share this, that you've had a talent for drawing and a passion since an early age. I mean, how far back would you say, or could you think of or remember, like little Mary?
Yeah, I've always loved to draw. And I can't even think of a time when I didn't or wasn't making something. And my parents were great. They had art supplies, always had art supplies around the house, and encouraged it, and signed me up for some neighborhood art classes and things like that. So
now, were either of them artists?
No, and that's why it's so meaningful to me that they did that, because no, they weren't artists. They didn't really. I remember when I told them that's what I wanted to do, I know my father thought, oh, great, how is she going to make a living? But he never said that, and neither one of them ever discouraged me from doing it. They were always very supportive and positive.
And I would imagine, right back then, it was probably like more people saying, okay, go become a doctor, go become a lawyer, go become a whichever.
Teacher was a big one at my school.
And it probably especially, too, for women.
Yeah.
Back then, they weren't necessarily pushed into those doctor, attorney fields. Like, let's make sure that whatever you do, you can come out and make money, which, there's a lot of artists who aren't able to support themselves and their families through that kind of work. So I think, to your point, that is what an amazing, just building block and foundation for them to foster that, especially when neither of them probably understood it very well.
No, they didn't, but they, as I said, they were supportive, and it was all I wanted to do. And so I was kind of determined to make a living out of it.
So I imagine, like, I'm not even great at stick figures. I'm just sitting here thinking, you get your first art set and your first, drawing board or whatever, and out comes these amazing drawings. Is that true? I mean, were you naturally just really good at it, or did you have to work at it?
Oh, no, you got to work at it. I mean, if you draw every day, you're bound to get better, right? That's But, I started, when I really started this, I think of it in high school, I bought some blank wedding invitations with the embossed border, and I would draw these little things, and I went to a local store, Fralix, it's no longer here, but it was a great store, and asked if they would sell them, and they said yes, and they paid me 25 cents a card and sold them for 50. It eventually went up to 50 cents a card, and they sold them for $1. But so everyone, they'd order like 2 dozen at a time, 3 dozen, and they sold really well. And but I would hand draw each one of them. And then my father got kind of interested in it, and he said, why don't we have these printed? And he took me downtown to a friend of his who was a printer. And so we did that, and I that's how I made my extra money. And that kind of made me realize that people like them, and they sold as fast as I could get them to her. And I thought, well, there is something here. I'll just keep doing this and see if I can do it on a bigger scale. And it just kind of grew, And I do have, I'm not a business person per se. I like, have other people handling that stuff, but I do have the mindset of, what can I do with this next, and what else could this be, and how do I make that happen? And so I do have that part down.
So it sounds like, maybe one of those, seeking beyond, not being discouraged if you don't have the answer, the full picture laid out, like just that ability to think bigger.
You just want to jump in. and see what happens, see if it works. If it doesn't work, you pivot and see something, maybe there's something similar I could do that would work. And that part is very interesting to me.
Now, not everybody thinks that way.
No, I don't think so.
So is that an inborn trait? Was it something your family kind of had? Was it something in you? Did you learn it along the way?
I guess it was just in me. And then, of course, I had the supportive family to back me up. But I think it was me who, I just always felt like that, something really good could happen, something really big could happen, and how do I get there?
So that optimism for something bigger, and then the willingness and the resilience and the grit to say, I'm going to figure this out. How do we get there? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which
it was fun.
And fun along the way. We had somebody, we were talking this morning about how we need fun and play in our lives to actually be more successful.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. You have to have not a relaxed attitude exactly, but a not panicking attitude. That if things don't go well, just wait a minute, or turn around and do something different. Maybe look at it. A great way to, and this is true in drawing too, a great way to think of a new idea, or if a drawing isn't working, I think, what is the exact opposite of what I'm doing here? And I'll, turn the drawing around, completely different than what I was thinking. And I think that's true in business too. If it's not working, you think, well, what if I did, didn't do the conventional wisdom direction? What if I did something totally different? Do you still think people would like it? And, and then I would go from there.
Can you remember a time, whether it was a drawing or one of your business lines or a venture you went into, where that really worked?
Well, it happens all the time with drawings. I mean, that's kind of a method I have of making them work if I don't feel like they are working. For business, I'm sure I've used that. One thing that comes to mind is the magazine. When we started the magazine, we didn't know anything about magazines. And I knew, and that two of my friends who I roped into helping me with it, was what we wanted a magazine to look like, or the kind of houses we wanted to show that we never saw anywhere else. And went to my publisher who did our calendars and said, we want to do this magazine. And they said, okay. They were also very supportive. And so we put the thing together, and it was really great looking. And but we didn't know that the very first time we put it together, very first time we took it to a store, we took it to Barnes & Noble. And they said, well, we really love it, but we can't put it with the magazines. It looks like a book. And we can't put it with the books because it's not actually a book, and it's more of a magazine. And so they, you just kind of have to switch your perspective and learn from them, what do we need to do to make this work? And so we retooled it and got it out there. And we had that magazine for 11 years, and it kept changing, and it kept, not always for the better, but, you just have to adapt to the magazine world. And, but it was always fun. It was always great.
Yeah, it's so much in just that one story of trying something new. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were going to try it.
Yeah.
We took it somewhere. They gave us some advice. We figured out how to change it a bit. And then along the way, we made sure to adapt as things were adapting. And wow, what magazine world. We know anything in print over the last several decades has gone through a lot of transformation.
Yeah. Well, we had the magazine for about 11 years, I think. And, 2008, which hurt everybody, it especially hit the magazine business hard. And we did fold it then, but it was just such a great, it was a great time, first of all, because we were showing all these great houses and a lot of artist studios. So meeting all kinds of wonderful people, travel to their homes and all different cities and shooting their houses. And it was just really, it really opened my eyes to a lot of different kinds of art and kinds of way to do art and sell art. And it was fun to see what all the other artists were doing and how they were making a living out of their art.
In doing that, did that change your approach to what you were doing or any of the business you were doing?
Well, not really. I mean, because we were just, I was going to do what I was going to do. So it was nice to see other people doing it. And it kind of made me feel like anything was possible. Don't hesitate to do something because, just looking around at all these other artists and how they were promoting their art, selling their art. And some of them weren't. I mean, some of them were just doing art for the fun of it. You don't have to sell everything. You don't have to turn it into a business. There's lots of other ways you could work for somebody else or just do it for yourself. Do it for your own, your own pleasure.
So I think back to Marion High School. You're figuring, I think just even the drawing and the guts to take it to a store and have it sold. Where does it go from there? I mean, where do you take it from there?
Actually, right after high school, I got a job at an art supply store, Art Mart, the late, great Art Mart.
I bet that was helpful for the art supply budget at home.
It was fantastic. And also I met all these working artists. And I also learned how to use all those tools that they sold in the store, which I hadn't been around. And then I would see the working artists come in and talk to them and find out how they were doing it. So it was a real great education, actually. And when I left that job, I got a job I didn't go to college. I wasn't crazy about school, and I really wanted to get out and just work. So after that job, I got a job at a very small ad agency, and he taught me the business of art, how much you charge, and why do you charge this, and how to build people, and that part was like the second half of my education. So he left town, took that business with him, and it was just the two of us. And so he left town, and I took over some of the clients freelance and just started selling my art at Left Bank Books here in town, had a small gallery in the basement. And so I would have a show there every year. And it was kind of a word of mouth thing. People came to the shows and, started really selling. I sold out almost every year. And that also pushed things in the right direction, too.
Yeah, I mean, especially today, I've got a son who's graduating high school, our oldest, and we've had the whole college talk. And I think there's a lot more discussion around, is college really necessary? Can you, get a lot of real life learning and true business application? And it sounds like from the art studio to then that job, that really helped bring in different pieces together that, you may or maybe would have gotten in college, but really worked with your goals.
I don't know if I would have gotten that kind of information at college. I have friends who did go to art school. And of course, one of the reasons I didn't go to art school was when you are talking about college in your senior year, and I was looking up the art schools, and they said, you need a portfolio. And I'm like, what is a portfolio? And, then I found out what that was. I thought, well, I don't have that. I don't know how to put one of those together. And so I just kind of thought, I just want to draw. That's all I want to do. So that's why I went off and didn't go to college. But I've talked to my friends who did go, and they had a great time. And some of them were working. Most of them aren't in the art business. I don't think they got I know they didn't get any kind of business education in art school. And I just think those two jobs I had could not have been more perfect. So I lucked out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you luck out? Did you just luck in, fall into that one job? How did that happen? I mean,
I just, I had been going to Art Mart to get my little supplies for years. And so, I knew that was there. And yeah, I just walked in, got a job. I worked there for a couple of years. We put on some art shows. And when he left, I can't remember how I found out about him, but yeah, I mean, it was a great, he taught me how to, get clients and how to use your art materials so you wouldn't, so you would still make money, and how to charge to make sure you covered all of that. And I don't know, I fell into both of those jobs, and they both came together and made a really great art education, I think.
Yeah, it's. I often think, again, as I think about if my kids will listen to me.
Yeah, good luck.
If I become smart again one day, I think that a lot of careers are really good when you can, venture into different lanes of a business and not just be in accounting or only be in sales or whatever it might be. That
exactly.
When you can, it may seem like you're doing a lot of lateral moves at first, but then I think the ability to elevate after that is so much greater.
Yeah,
if you're
because
just siloed.
you're learning as you're doing that, switching around and moving around. You're learning the business. You're learning if that's really for you or not. And every step you take is an education. I mean, do you want to go in that direction or this direction? And, you learn from all of it. And I don't think, and of course art school is great and it's a wonderful thing, but it's not for everybody. And none of college is, I think. Some people would do better getting out there in the workforce and, just start putting their talents to work.
Was that hard to say no to college? Was there a lot of pressure?
Not for me, but yeah, I think my parents were hoping I would go, but once again, they were great, and said, well, okay, but you gotta, what are you gonna do? And I said, well, I got this job at the art supply store. So they were fine with it.
So parents and leaders of people, listen up.
Yeah.
There's not one path.
Yeah, there's definitely not one path. There's not one way to do anything. So many different ways to do anything you have in your head, I think.
So how did it go from, freelancing with some of these clients and drawing to the Mary Engelbreit brand starts? Or am I jumping too far?
No.
What are the pieces in between?
So I was doing that kind of thing. And then a friend of ours, I wanted to illustrate children's books. And a friend of ours lived in New York and was in the publishing business. And he was kind enough to set me up with a bunch of interviews with children's book publishers. So I went up there by myself, and it was wonderful, and it was terrifying to be in New York. And I now had a portfolio. So I took that around to the different publishers, and they were all great, and they all saw me. And, and one of them said, I quickly realized that they weren't going to use me to illustrate their books. They have their own stable of artists that they use to do that. But they all gave me advice and everything. And one woman said, why don't you try greeting cards? Because they're just looking for one drawing, not a whole book full of drawings, and they're always looking for new art. And I don't know why I hadn't thought of that since I was making the greeting cards in high school. But I did. I hooked up with a couple of different greeting card publishers, and it just kind of grew from there.
So I almost want to go back to, we're in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. Was that trip to New York your first time out of St. Louis or your first time into it?
Yes.
That was I didn't want to assume here. And
it was my first trip to New York. And, you have all these romantic ideas about New York. And it actually, that trip was just like what you would imagine. It was just really fun. And people taking you out for dinner and stuff like that. It was really fun. And then once I started doing the greeting card thing, we believe we started the company then. The greeting cards were a great advertisement for what I did. And we decided, I am kind of jumping forward a little bit, but when we decided to go to the stationery show in New York, that was really a great trip to New York. And we were courted by publishers and things like that. So it was really, really, it was really fun. But I have to say, everything just kind of, I started down here with the greeting cards in high school, and then took this step, and then the next step, and then the next step. That's what it seemed like to me, that it was just always growing, and we were always ready to grab any opportunity that came by. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. I actually can't think of too many that didn't work. Honestly, it was just luck, and we also hit that business at exactly the right time. And that was luck, it's just luck.
What was so right about it, or luck at the time?
Well, before greeting cards were mainly flowers and animals. And they all said, happy birthday on the front, or whatever the occasion was. And when I started, I illustrated quotes. The quote was on the front, and the drawings were pretty elaborate for a greeting card. They were very detailed and elaborate and had borders, and there just wasn't anything out there like them. And I didn't try to do that. That's just how I drew. But so it was something new on the scene, and people were really anxious to, at that trade show, they would come up to us, and we had this pathetic booth with our, I think it was about 12 cards on a card table. We didn't know about trade shows. So, but we were, a lot of people were coming by, and they were really interested in the art. And a couple of people asked us, we'd like to license your art for our calendars or our picture frames or something. We did not even know what licensing was. So we quickly found out during that show. And so like I say, it was just kind of one thing led to another, to another, to another. And we'd learn about it as fast as we could and just kept moving forward.
Yeah, it sounds like that old formula, right? Where preparation and luck meet each other. That's success.
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely what happened to me.
And I would probably, with your story, and probably with a lot of people's stories, sprinkle in, don't overthink, don't worry too much.
It's really true. I mean, if one thing didn't work out, you just move on to the next. We were never too worried back then.
Because it sounds so simple.
It seems simple to me as I look back, because it certainly got more complicated, as we went on. I've been in business for almost 50 years, so it's definitely gotten more complicated. But back then, it just seemed like, and maybe it's just my looking back on it, but it seemed simple. I was just lucky. It just was the right thing at the right time.
And staying true to yourself and who you are.
Right, exactly. And that was very important to me from the get-go, and it still is. So I always kept that. So, yeah, with me, I feel like the licenses knew what they were going to get,
And at that point, we...
Yeah.
Who is we? How many?
My husband and I started it. And which we had a great time. It was really fun. And then we started hiring other people to help out. And, the company just grew one person by one person for a long time. Hired another artist to help me out. And, eventually you get the whole company. You get the financial person, and you get the marketing person and all that. So, but yeah, there's always been a we. It's never been just me. It's always been somebody else there helping me to move forward.
Well, and even, I didn't want to go back to that part of the story, but this is part of the story of going to New York and asking for that help from your friend, right?
Right.
Who do you know that you can put me in touch with, which then led you to the one woman saying greeting cards, which then
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. It was just a step-by-step thing. And I've never been afraid to, you should never be afraid to ask for help and somebody who knows more than you do. And, you just have to be willing to, because it was scary going to New York. And I stayed with a friend of a friend who I didn't know. Turned out to be a very bizarre person, but it was interesting in this little walk-up apartment in New York. And the whole thing was just fun and educational and worked out.
And yeah, you took some risks and you took some adventures on, and again, back to that formula of preparation plus luck equals success. And I think, I guess when I think about the whole aura of what you put out there, I feel like the world and people want and need purity, joy, kindness, light, energy.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of the appeal of the cards, because that is definitely what I drew. And humor, a lot of them are funny, and but very light. But also I think the cards showed different parts of like friendship or kind of what women went through. I had that card of a very pregnant girl that said, you deserve a party for a baby shower. Things like that women recognized and they thought was funny. And a lot of people have told me they buy 2 cards. They buy one to send and one to keep. So that was helpful. That worked out. Yeah.
Says a lot. It sounds like you were able to say things.
Yeah, I think because I was just illustrating stuff that was happening in my life with, having babies and, the house and the business and everything. And I was just illustrating things that happened to me so everybody recognized themselves in the card. We weren't living some weird, strange life. It was just everyday stuff.
So if you were to look at Mary Engelbreit through the years, would it sort of like go through your life and...
Yeah, I think it does.
Alongside you.
I think it does, yeah. Like when my boys were little, I drew a ton of boys on the cards. And then, we were raising my granddaughter. And all of a sudden it all switched to girls. But I think you can tell. I think that is a good timeline of my life, looking at the cards.
Yeah, and I think being a woman, being in business and having kids, and I talked about this before we started the podcast. I think in life, there's challenges, just different challenges women face in business and in life. And then, some of it's the business, some of it's our internal struggles that we bring to the table. Some of it's, society maybe not changing as women are more heavily in the workforce, and how do we support families in those situations. I imagine, I don't want to put something out there that isn't out there, but I imagine you saw some interesting things being who you are, building the business that you did through those different decades of being a highly successful career woman.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through all the things you would go through starting a business. Eventually Phil left the business, and we got business partners or brought in other people to run it. At one point, we had a ridiculous number of employees that was driving me crazy, and so then that came back down and became more manageable in my eyes. But we've been through so many different things. We did the cards, and then we did the licensing, and then we did the magazine, which was a whole different business and needed a whole different staff of people. And before that, we had opened 12 stores all throughout the country in different malls. So there was that business. And so it's just been kind of one thing after another, and you deal with it and figure out what is actually good for the company and what you could probably let go. Turned out not to be what you thought it was going to be. And we have to be willing to admit either that it was a mistake or that it was just not for you, wasn't what you wanted to put all your energy into.
Can you think of the first time you came across a mistake, and how did you deal with it?
I would say the first thing that I felt that way about was the stores.
Because I remember the store. I mean, I remember the Galleria right here.
Yeah, and they were darling stores. They were really cute. I had a friend of mine help me with the display, and they were really great looking stores, and we had a formula. They all looked the same wherever we put one. And they were very, very popular. And we had so much product at that time that we easily could fill a store in a mall. I do signings and travel all over the country and do signings at each different store. But it was a business that you needed so many people, and you had to have, a huge staff for each store. And it seemed like all my attention was being diverted by these stores. And malls were also, we could kind of see the handwriting on the wall too with malls. And I didn't want to, have to be, I wanted to get out before what I thought was going to happen happened. And it was just taking too much of my time and my energy away from drawing.
How long did you have the stores open?
Well, they were open for, I'm not really sure, but I'd say 4 years, 5 years, maybe.
Was that hard to come to that decision? Or I imagine with that much energy and, as you said, success, it could be hard to say, no, we're going to shut that down.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how I felt. I think I just felt relief. We were also experiencing in these stores that were, far flung, some theft in some stores and, that kind of thing. And these managers that we didn't really know, we were hiring from a distance. So I think by the time we ended it, I was ready to end it and move on to something else. Customers were disappointed because, the stores were really popular, and they were actually almost meeting places for women. That they would, plan days around the store and lunch and that kind of thing. And we heard from a lot of people who were disappointed that they closed. But yeah, by the time we came to that decision, I was fine with it.
I mean, I think just in that story alone, there's so many business learning lessons there. Like, you can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah, you really can't.
And you can't lose yourself in trying to give to someone else. Mm-hmm. And certainly along the lines of your whole story of trying things and being willing to let go, like just that story alone.
Yeah,
it's a lot of great business.
I do think it's important to maybe step back and think, am I really doing what I started out to do here? Has this turned into this, 8-headed, monster that, you have to kind of bring it back to what you wanted to do in the first place.
Well, and something you said from the onset was the people you work with, the business, you want to know them, you want to like them, you want to trust them. And something that stood out to me there was with these stores that are spread out,
right,
that could detract from the culture and that sort of core value of yours. Additionally, what if you just didn't know them? Right.
It's just a matter of, it felt out of our control. Actually, it felt out of my control. Nobody else was too concerned at that time. But yeah, you just feel like it's gotten out of your hands, and you can't make sure that everything is going to be the way you want it to be.
And those were the things that were important to you. This is your name, your brand, your person. And so probably having some of the guts to say, I know we had all this work put into these, but we're not going to do it.
And they were great while they lasted. But I think if we wanted to keep that going, what we would have had to do is move out of the malls and do freestanding stores, which was a huge undertaking. And we looked at that for about a minute and a half, and that's not something I was interested in doing.
Yeah, in a day where I think people are maybe conditioned to get bigger, do more,
right,
be a bigger presence.
Exactly. And at the same time we were doing that, Martha Stewart was out there, and she was doing that, and she was doing TV, and she was doing this. And I think the mindset at that time was just keep doing it, just do more and more and more and more. And we were kind of headed down that path with the stores. And when I realized that I didn't want to do it. It was, I guess sometimes I think I just wasn't that ambitious, like say a Martha Stewart is, and which is, that's, I'm not sure how to describe that, because I admire what she's done. But I just was getting too far away from the basic drawing, which is what I really was interested in. So, yeah, we kind of put the brakes on it.
And it sounds like you're happy for doing that, like that you don't look back and there's any regrets.
No, I wish we could have kept the magazine going. The magazine was my other love. I love decorating, and I love houses, and I love to see how other people live, and I love to see how other artists work. So that was, we were disappointed to have to end that. But, it was actually impossible after that financial disaster that happened all over the world.
Right.
And a lot of magazines went under because advertisers weren't advertising anymore. So.
Right. Those are one of the first budgets to get cut.
Yep. Yeah. So. But that would be my only regret. And actually, that is the thing that we get asked most about. Everybody wants the magazine back. Never going to happen. But that's, that was probably my biggest regret, that we had to close that.
If 08, 09 don't happen?
If what?
If 08 and 09 don't happen, are you still doing the magazine?
No. No. Not now. And it's, magazines are still, with the onset, and this is another thing, in the very middle of my career, all this technical, all the social media happened. We didn't have that at the beginning. And when that happened, now people read magazines online, and it's a whole completely different business. And I just, we just never, couldn't get it together to start it again online.
Thinking of social media, AI now, all these changes in technology, does it impact your business?
Sure. AI is be very interesting to see how this impacts any art business. And it's not going to be good. And it's sad to see it happen, I think. I mean, AI is good for some things, for sure. I don't know what, but I know that it is. But, for artists, it's just not going to be good.
It might be harder to start. I mean, you've got a brand, you've got a personality that's built there that people love and have grown up with.
Right.
And you see it now with Gen Xers and all these old, cartoons and movies and things that are coming back because they're marketing to us. Very smart of them.
Yeah.
We're going to buy our kids that kind of stuff. That you've just had this brand and this feeling. I think it's a feeling, a joyous feeling you bring that people connect with. That would probably be hard to
reproduce with AI. Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. We always have people tell us that they grew up with it, And now they want it for their kids, while I'm sure after they grew up with it, they hated it for a while. And now they are coming back to it for their own kids, or just because it makes them feel closer to like their moms, because it was important to their mothers. So yeah, I'm lucky to have that, because I think a person, maybe, an artist starting out, I think it's going to be difficult to just get your art out there to a company, just because the company could use AI, or do it, or grab something off the internet. And those companies don't seem as interested in having such a personal thing. It's more the speed of it. I can get this right away, So I'm glad I'm not just starting now.
Right. Well, I mean, I would imagine, I don't know, my husband and I do this podcast together. I think we do it pretty well. Like, there's no main arguments or issues or challenges. Granted, we both have full-time jobs outside of this. Working with your husband.
Oh, we had such a good time. He was the head of the intake department at the St. Louis County Juvenile Court.
Oh.
And he was really good at it. And he was just, great at that job and cared a lot about it. But I managed to talk him out of it and talk him into leaving. Because I had a partner before him who helped, and he helped a lot. It was great, but he wanted to move on. What he liked was starting a business and seeing it grow. And once he had launched it, his interest waned. And so I talked Phil into coming on, and he was ready for a change, and it was really fun. Like you said, we never argued about it. We never had any problems working together every day and going home at night, because at night we would talk about the business or the kids. But we didn't mind that. There wasn't, we didn't have any division, really. Now we're home, we can't talk about the business, because the business was our life.
Did it just work out that way, or did you set ground rules ahead of time, or?
No, we really didn't. Yeah, we always just had fun together doing that kind of stuff.
And the way you talk about his first job and how successful and great he was at it, It sounds like there was support both ways, of both support and appreciation both ways of the skills and the intellect and the hard work that you both brought.
Yeah, and he was always so supportive of me too. When we first got married, I wasn't making any money, but he always, encouraged me to keep at it. He never said, you got to go out and get a real job. He was just always, encouraging me. And so when he came on board, we just kind of kept doing what we had always been doing. And he is also very good dealing with a lot of people. He likes that kind of thing, whereas I do not. But so he would handle that part, and yeah, it worked really well until it didn't, but it worked really well. Then he got tired of it, and we had some other people come into the company who were also doing things that he was not well versed in, and eventually he decided that we were in a position where he could leave, and other people would take over. So
was that difficult to bring more? Sometimes as business owners, I've heard it can be that difficulty of when you start bringing people in from the outside and hiring. So not only is it an expense, but then you're not there's probably twofold, right? Like, I don't really want to do it, but I also don't necessarily want to give up control. But I also, was it hard to start bringing other people in?
Yeah, it was. It was. There seemed, with my husband, and whose name is Phil Delano, by the way, but when we were doing it, it was a mutual, we both understood exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it, and we understood each other. So yeah, when you bring somebody new into that with a business mindset, which of course is what you want, it was just it was different. I wouldn't say it was hard, but it was different. So, but then and then it's just one drama after another. After a while, when you have a lot of people working in there, it was just different dealing with a bigger company than it was when it was just me and my husband.
It's almost that danged if you do, danged if you don't, sort of like if you want to, keep being successful, you have to, but at the same time, it brings in different challenges. Yeah,
if you want to grow, you have to do that. So, and then, sometimes you have problems with those people, and a lot of your attention and energy goes towards that. But I've always managed to keep drawing all the way through all of it. And so that's what keeps me sane. But yeah, it's been a challenge on many occasions.
So the stationery and the greeting cards were really what?
That was the center of our business with the greeting cards and calendars, and now and books, children's books. And at the time, back then, licensing was so hot, and we just had so many products. It was on everything: dolls and figurines and frames and sheets and wallpaper and just all kinds of things back then. And then licensing, I would say licensing changed a little. Just taste changed. Mm-hmm. Younger people were not interested in filling their house with figurines, like their mothers before them. So you have to kind of keep up with what's popular, and which was fun. It's always fun to me to change and look at things differently, and if people want, a simpler look, what could we do to make that happen? And so those kind of challenges are fun for me.
Sounds like probably not losing who it is at the core, but marrying it with
what people want.
Right.
I mean, you're in the business of selling things to people, so you have to make it attractive to them. And that part I don't mind. That's fun.
How do you stay on top of that? Like you mentioned, you kind of really saw where the malls were going, mm-hmm. that it would be time to get out. How do you become aware of it or stay in front of those changes?
The trends and things, you mean? Well, I'm pretty hooked into what's popular, magazines, decorating trends, things like that. And when you go to those trade shows every year, a couple of them a year, you see what's coming out, what people are buying. We watched our own sales to see what was popular and what was not. And then I've got people like my daughter who says, why do you draw people in those clothes all the time? Why they look so old-fashioned? Why don't you do this and that? So I've got all kinds of information coming at me from all different directions.
So let me ask, is your booth at the trade show look different than that one?
That was the one we did. We never did another booth because we started licensing at that show. And then the licensors or the licensees would put us in their booths. So we didn't have to.
Oh, so maybe it's great that you didn't have an overly expansive, excessive booth because you didn't use it.
I didn't need it. I didn't have to spend all that money. Yeah, so that worked out really well.
And I know so much to talk to. I'm keeping an eye because time can fly by. Not only do you focus on the Mary Engelbreit brand, mm-hmm. you also help other companies and support and sponsor other ideas. Yeah, we do a lot now. We never used to do this. It was straight licensing, but now we do a lot of collaborations with companies. They'll have I'm trying to think of one that we did. We've done several where we just kind of do art that fits in with their company, and they want our brand to help their brand sell. So we do a lot of collaborations, and I really enjoy that. And it's How did that come about?
I would say Nikki, who started doing the collaborations.
And it from what I understand, could be wrong, it really is sort of that mutual, and they're getting a big benefit from working with. So it feels like sort of a mentorship and support along the way.
Yeah, I mean, they're anxious to get a hold of our customers, and and a lot of the companies we do collaborate with are kind of geared towards a younger customer than we have always, had the older customer locked up. But so to get to these younger companies, it's really a great idea to collaborate with these different companies that are geared towards that customer.
Sounds like a symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, and it's not so long and involved as some of the licenses were for a year. You'd sign a license that you'd be hooked up with them for years. This is a collaboration. You do it, it's exciting, you announce it, it's out there, and then, that's over and you move on to the next thing, which keeps it really interesting for me.
Yeah, fresh ideas, as you mentioned, a lot of
yeah.
And again, I'm thinking, wow, what sort of mentorship for these, or just, I'm sure they look up to Mary Engelbreit and like, we get to learn and see what she did.
Yeah, I think the problem with, and I do talk to a lot of artists who call for advice and things. It's hard for me to give advice. They want to know how I did this, and the thing is, I did it so long ago, it was totally different how you got into this business, or how you produce product, how you sold product, and you cannot do it nowadays. It's just it's not there the way I did business. And now it's all different on the internet and on the, it's all computer, a lot of computer art. Licensing is different. It's just hard for me. I can tell them what I did, but it's not going to help them,
And I think there's some baselines there. Again, when I think of business, there's all different types of business, but what at the core makes those different types of businesses successful? Mm-hmm. It's things like knowing who you are, knowing what your mission, mission, what you're willing to let go of and what you're willing not to let go of.
Right. And I think that's why we're still in business after 50 years, is that obviously these drawings are, appealing to people still, because I just illustrate such normal stuff that everybody recognizes it. So, and that's the key to the success to my business. Now, there are plenty of other ways to make a living in art rather than doing such a specialized kind of art, or such a personal kind of art. Plenty of ways to design for companies that just want to see patterns, or they want drawings that appeal to all kinds of people. Everything does not have to be so personal, with other companies. But with me, that's what matters in this company. I want it to stay meaningful to me and personal to me, because I feel like that's how I actually reach people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that almost we hear the vulnerability, the authenticity. And that's, while I think those have become bigger buzzwords, at the same time, I think people just want real.
I think they do. Yeah. Like an example of that is when we were doing cards. As I said, I'd put a quote on the card and illustrate it. Most of our cards were blank inside, and as time went on and we hooked up with a couple of different card companies, the trend changed from blank, and you had to have a sending situation in it, because evidently people could not think of what to write on the inside of a card. I mean, all you got to write is happy birthday, love, whoever. But so we did that. We put the words on the inside, and sales did go up. But things changed like that. When I started, people loved writing notes and getting mail, sending mail. They don't anymore. Everybody emails. And if they do send a card, they, want the happy birthday. So, we do those things, but I just want to make sure that it still is my drawing, my version of the drawing. And that it stays true to what I want to do.
When you think of a drawing, like how does it go from idea to end result?
The finished thing. I don't even do, it's hard for me to say because I don't do sketches or anything. I don't have a sketchbook or anything. So if I have an idea, and usually I'm either thinking of a certain situation or I have the quote in front of me that I'm going to use. And usually when I read the quote, the drawing just pops into my mind. So I will do a pencil drawing of what I'm originally thinking. Sometimes that changes and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I just go right from that sketch to pen and ink, and then I use marker and I use colored pencil over the marker. And I can do them pretty quickly now. So as soon as I do them, I take them to my art department.
How quick is quick?
I can do it in a day, a drawing in a day. So I send it to my art department and they scan it and do all the things they have to do. Send it off, and then we wait forever for the product to come out. By the time it comes out, I'm like, that old thing. But
how long about is that time frame?
Sometimes, the calendars I do a year and a half ahead of time. So because things now are put out earlier and earlier, the calendars start showing up, I think, in June.
Wow.
In the stores. Yeah. So it's just constantly trying to keep all those deadlines in mind.
You mentioned that some of your stories and your things are based on real life, people around you. Has anybody ever come back to you and said, I know that was me?
No, nobody ever has.
Have you ever gone to somebody and said, hey, by the way, this was...
Well, yeah, sometimes I give the drawings to friends and say, this was you, or, I did this for that trip that we took, or something like that. So I'll have to tell them. But no, nobody's ever recognized themselves, I don't think.
Well, and maybe with a year and a half lead time, they may not.
They forget.
Thought, right.
Yeah, they forget. But they do inspire me, my friends and family, and, they're a constant inspiration to me.
Have your kids ever come back and said, hey, Mom, why did you put me out there like that?
My son asks why I always draw him with a sailor suit on. But back in the day, everybody dressed their kids like that. But no, they're always very happy to see, and I have drawn them several times, so they're in a lot of my drawings.
Obviously, you've had probably a million different types of drawings and things throughout the years, but are there any of them, whether it's drawings or, at the end of the day, the calendar or something that was sold at the store, anything that top few that stick out to you?
Not really. I mean, everybody asks me, what's your favorite drawing? And it's kind of the drawing that I finished last because I enjoyed doing it and it was fun and it was different. And I obviously I like some better than others, but I like them all. I don't think about them much after I finish it. After I draw it, finish it, it's ready to go off. I'm on to the next thing, and I don't really think about them that much after that.
Anything that you thought would not be as big of a success and it was, or you thought would be a huge success and it wasn't?
Yes. As a matter of fact, everybody at my office says if I like it, we can pretty much guarantee that it will be the worst seller. But another one that I never thought would sell that did is we have a line of cards called Engelbreit. Mary Engelbreit instead of Bright. And I had all these funny quotes, but they weren't really appropriate for my line of greeting cards. So I said, what if we, I'm going to illustrate these quotes, but I'm going to do it all in black and white. And we'll just see if they sell. And we put them out, and they just blew off the shelves. It was pretty funny.
What's an example of one?
They're kind of sarcastic, and
good.
One of them is I would challenge you to a battle of wits, but I see you are unarmed. A no is a complete sentence is another one.
That's maybe that's sarcastic, but that's also one that
very
we
true.
need to, many of us need to practice using.
Exactly. So there's a whole line of these kind of snarky things. So as a matter of fact, they just took off, and they were so popular that we now have a calendar of them and a journal and T-shirts and the whole 9 yards.
I love that, Mary Engeldark.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Worked out.
What are some of the fan favorites overall?
A lot of them still like the classics, like that Life is Just a Cheruboli's. And that was inspired by something that actually happened. I was over at a friend's house, and his father was kind of reading the riot act to his brother in another room. And he said that. He said, life is not a Cheruboli's. And we were just rolling, laughing in the other room, because obviously he meant to say, what did he mean to say? A bowl of cherries. Yeah. So I illustrated that, and it's still really popular. It's still selling. It's one of our best sellers all these years later.
That's great. I mean, they often say some of the best things come from those little moments, those little mistakes.
Yeah, that you never really would even, consider. But a lot of our old cards are still in print. But the new ones are good too. And now, of course, I can't think of any.
Right. Well, of course.
Yeah.
That's the rule of thumb.
I think we have over 14,000 copyrights. So who knows what I did back in the day.
Along the way, again, so much that we've already covered, but anything that sticks out, mistakes, biggest learning lessons, biggest successes that somebody there listening, in business or owning their own business, wanting to start their own business, anything you look back on? And
I do tell people to get a good copyright attorney, and that's definitely a must in this business, which is even if you have good help in that direction, it's going to be hard in this digital age to protect your art, but at least you should be as prepared as you can be on your end. Making sure that the people you hire have your interests in mind. Be sure that they're going to work to make sure the company stays the way you want it to stay, which is tricky. Sometimes you make mistakes with the hiring, but we've been very lucky. We've had great people. Even the people that we have now, that as the company changed, it would grow, and then it would, get smaller again, and then it would grow. But we still get together with a lot of the old employees. They all want to get together for lunch, and it's, we have mostly a very good bunch of people. But you can't avoid, getting a lemon in there once in a while, and you have to be ready to make a change if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to always be perfect.
Right.
And when you're growing and trying new things, there are going to be those learning opportunities.
Yes, that's what we call them,
yes.
A learning opportunity. But and you also can't wait for everything to be perfect before you do something. You can't, don't think that there's a right moment, to do something. If an opportunity comes your way, you just have to grab it and run with it and, turn it into what you want. Because if you wait for everything to be right, the very right time when you're going to make the biggest impact, it's just not going to happen. Nothing's ever perfect.
Yeah, and most of what we see in success out there, that's the hitting the peak of so much work on the front end, and it's not just I decided to do this and look, wow, I'm so successful already.
Yeah. There's always a ton of work to get you to that place, and you have to be willing to put in the work.
So there's, again, Mary Engelbreit and Mary Engeldark are out there, along with all these different collaborations. And I know the website, but where are all the places that people can find out more about everything you're doing and all these collaborations and everything the whole company's doing?
Yeah, I would say everything is on our website. And we also have a newsletter, too, that you can sign up for. But all the information and every single thing we sell is on the website. So if you want to, also things like interviews and things like that are on there, too. So anything you could possibly want to know about me is on that website.
So for people that are looking for the website, just a straight Google type in.
Right, it's MaryEngelbreit.com, and Engelbreit is ENGELBREIT.
And they can go out, again, look at the newsletter, sign up for that. They can look at all the different things that they can purchase and or the collaborations, the story. They can learn more there.
Right.
And definitely a lot of success and a lot of things along the way to learn from. I think of what stands out to me in so many ways. Again, maybe this is just my age, and I feel like maybe starting to figure out who I am at 40 something is, which I try to tell my kids, like learn who you are early on and try to stay as close to that as you can. But there's a purity, a kindness, really centering in on wanting, in my mind, to bring that brightness and joy to others. And
or if not, there's always Mary Engel Dark.
Yes, so. The fun, the sassy, sarcastic fun. Right, yeah. Right. We can do fun, but I think it's getting back to bringing people to a place of fun and play and joy, and that so much of us need that relief in our lives, and we really connect with. And what amazes me is that you said you had this vision, and yes, you tried different things, but you always sort of came back to the base in the middle and said, nope, I'm comfortable knowing who we are and where we should stay.
Right. And I think if you can do that, that's a good way to keep the business rolling.
That's the best way to end this, I think.
I think so too.
From the mouth of Mary Engelbreit, to be, stick true to who you are. That's the best way to keep the business rolling. So thank you I know you've shared your story a million times. I've learned things through here, and it's just great to connect with real amazing people out there. So thank you for taking the time to come in and talk today and share.
Oh, thanks so much. It was great to be here.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit SheLiftProject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.